Could a 4-day working week be the future for the UK's working population? You might have just shouted yes, wherever you are. Well, that's what Unison, the country's largest workers' union, is hoping for from the new Labour government. But just how effective is it? And, will it actually work? At South Cambridgeshire District Council, a 15-month trial has increased productivity, it's reduced staff turnover, it's improved health, and according to an independent report released today, all of these things have been good for the people who have been on this trial. However, supermarket chain Asda has scrapped its flagship 4-day work week policy. That's after complaints that staff found the 11-hour shifts exhausting. So what is the verdict here? Well, we have two people to help us decide this evening. Joe Ryle, the director of the 4-Day Week campaign, and Elliot Keck, head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance. Hello, both of you.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Joe Ryle, I'll come to you first because, we've seen some of these, trials take place. We've talked a lot about productivity and how it's great and, it's improved mental health and physical health. Is that what we've seen across the board? Are there any downsides here?
Not really. I mean, as hundreds of UK companies in the private sector have already shown, a 4-day week with no loss of pay for workers can be a win-win for both workers and businesses. Now, what the South Cambridgeshire District Council now shows is that, it proves once and for all a 4-day week can also work in the public sector and for local councils. There's been improved performance in terms of services being delivered better, improved staff well-being, which you can obviously understand when people are working 1 day less. But also increases in job recruitment, job retention, which has actually saved the council almost £400,000. So it really has been a win-win all round.
Asda don't seem to think so, though, Joe, that a 4-day working week makes a positive difference. Quite the opposite, in fact, for them.
Yeah, so just to be very clear on the Asda trial, that actually is not a 4-day week trial. That is a compressed hours trial. What Asda have done is done 44 hours, which is a very long working week, in 4 days rather than 5. It's very, very different to what's happened at South Cambridgeshire, where they've reduced working hours. The key here is a reduction in weekly working hours to 32 hours a week. So you just really can't compare those two things, and we hope that Asda would actually trial a true 4-day week going forwards, more like a kind of 32-hour working week for staff.
We've heard this idea of taxpayers paying for days off in the public sector. If the public sector starts, will private sectors follow? Elliot, listening to that, are you a fan of that idea?
Listen, the first thing to say is a lot of the benefits have been exaggerated. When this trial first began, the savings on agency staff was put at £1 million. That's now drastically shrunk to only around £400,000. But listen, the real problem with South Cambridgeshire is the shockingly undemocratic way that they've gone about this trial. The trial was initially only supposed to last 3 months. It was then extended by a year. Councillors were promised time and time again, including by the leader of the council, they would be given a vote on it. Then when the year ended, it was announced that the trial was going to continue indefinitely. Councillors have still not had a vote. So what we've had is a very radical and transformatory change and experiment into the way that this council operates, and yet local councillors who represent their voters haven't had a say. It wasn't put to voters at the ballot box, and I think it's a really egregious way to go about such a radical change.
Well, Elliot, Unison are calling on the new government to change the working week to 4 days for millions of people. What are you expecting from this next government?
Well, very interesting, of course, that the Labour opposition largely rebuffed most of these calls during the campaign. They have won this majority without a promise and without a commitment to bring in a 4-day week. So I would expect them to honour that commitment. Listen, this is a government that has an absolutely huge in-tray on the NHS, on police, crime, prisons, as we've seen. The priority is not to launch what is a pretty radical experiment. It's not to say that a 4-day week couldn't work at some point in the future. That's not to say that the 5-day 9-to-5 working practice is set in stone or is a law of nature, but to prioritise such a radical change to the way we work and the way the public sector works is clearly not a priority given all the other significant problems that the country faces.
Joe, what's your take about hospitality and retail workers, or those in Asda? How would it work for people who are not on a typical 9-to-5 office job shift?
Well, there's going to be different ways of implementing it, and of course, we're not going to have a 4-day week for everyone overnight. I mean, what we say is that over a period of something like a decade, vast swathes of the economy, most of the economy could move to a 4-day working week. Because let's remember, it's been 100 years since we moved from a 6-day working week to a 5-day working week since we won the weekend. I think we can all agree that, 100 years later, the world of work has transformed. We're seeing new technology like artificial intelligence. If we want to be embracing the future of work, it does look like a shorter working week, like a 4-day working week. And so, it's been brilliant to see lots of experimentation in the private sector. We now think it's time for the public sector to catch up, and there should be more trials across councils all over the country. I mean, this trial has been very successful. Why would we not trial that more widely?
Well, just very quickly before I let you both go, just one quick question for both of you. Elliot, should we be working 4 days a week?
I think that's a nice goal, but given the shockingly low levels of productivity and the desire for more growth, I think giving everybody an extra day off a week is probably not the priority at the moment.
Joe?
Well, just in response to that, I mean, we have we have one of the lowest levels of productivity in the UK, and we work on the longest hours compared to the rest of Europe. So all these long working hours we're putting in is not producing good results for the economy. I think it's time to do something different. I think 4-day working week is what everyone wants, and the economy doesn't need us all to be working 5 days a week anymore.
Well, there you have it. Joe Ryle, the director of the 4-Day Week campaign, and Elliot Keck as well, head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance.